Hi, it's Joan. This Korean reading is Sura 36 and it's called Yasin. When I looked up what it meant, it said chief or rich, depending on the spelling. So I'm not sure how it applies here. It must mean rich. The core of it is about being a messenger for God. And this speak about how Islam is more geared towards the middle class. Before I start it, I'm going to do a prayer. Allah, you are merciful and compassionate, eternal and holy. You made and sustain the universe and make a day of judgment. I worship you and seek help from you. Keep me on a straight path of belief, not one that goes astray or causes your wrath. Bismillah, Rahman, Rahim, Al-Badi Akdas, Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, Wa Maliki Yamadeen. Iyaka nabudu wa, Iyaka na'asta'inu. Andina Sarada Mustaqim, Sarada Alathina Anamta Elohim, Giri Al Miktubi, Sarada Elohim, Wada Al Amin. So, like I said, the surah is speaking about how each person in Islam is to be a messenger for God against disbelief. And that's in verse 3. Our duty is to give clear communication. That's verse 17. It speaks about how it's against extravagance, which is verse 19, and calls it evil. In verse 18, it says, if you don't give up extravagance, we'll stone you. And in verse 60, it says that Islam has a covenant and it's not to get involved with Satan, or that's what opposes God. And in verse 70, to warn those who are alive and give word against the faithless. And so I did want to mention something odd happened to me recently. I was traveling from a restaurant to a career center to do some work, and I was happy, but someone threw a stone. It hit the top of my head. I'm not sure why, but it's kind of odd, I guess, to just now read this information. And then I did some more study also about someone I just saw. He was a similar look to the Islamic pilot on Flight 93. His name was Zayad, Z-I-A-D, Jara, or Yara, Jarrah. And I happened to have a neurologist appointment with a person that looked like him. And then this morning when I was traveling on the FSU bus, I saw a man that looked like him as well. So I did a little study on that, and then on also the pilot that was American on board the flight. His name was Jason Dahl, and I learned that he looked somewhat like me. It said that it was unusually so that the day that the crash happened, he was carrying a small box of stones or rocks that was a gift from his son. So I don't know if that has anything to do with what happened to me, but I wish whoever did it would talk to me about why, because I'm definitely not into extravagance. I've been victimized for my beliefs in God, and I've been living at a lower level than I ever have in America with wealth. I'm in emergency housing. I have no income. And I would prefer anytime that there's animosity that someone speak to me first about whatever's wrong than to just attack. But I did think I did want to mention that the research I did on this Islamic militant was that he was from Lebanon and his date of birth was May 11th. He attended Hamburg University and was recruited by Osama bin Laden. in the 90s. He went to Afghanistan to do training. Eventually, he ended up overtaking the flight and the pilot and attempted to fly the plane into the White House. It said his family was wealthy, but lists him as living in apartments. He took flight school training at Venice, Florida, here through Huffman Aviation, which is, I looked on a map, is just south of Tampa. It reported him as initially having apprehension about the attacks and that he had met with Muhammad Atta and Marwan Shehi, a couple people that I